Good morning, good morning. What is up, folks? It is Tuesday, June the 24th. JT here with your Xtrades morning live stream. Let's go. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on, and of course, some new great plans to work out this morning. So I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you're staying safe. And let's dig in, right? What's up, Navy Plum? Good to see you here, bright and early. My setup here. I'm liking this. This is working. Sorry, I'm just adjusting a couple of things with my screens. All right. Test mode anymore. Oh, all right. Oops. On. Going. What's the? There we go. All right. Sorry, gotta fix one thing real quick. I just realized I wasn't logged in to my there's broker, so my there's data showing delayed, but I haven't started sharing my screen. So I'll get it real quick. I don't want anybody seeing my credentials. All right, there we go. Put that back on. Now we can do it and screen sharing going over here. Share screen. All right, now we're good to go. Good morning, Maybe Plum. How are you, my friend? Hope you are doing well. So let's take a look at things here on ES as we always do, just to kind of get our bearings in the markets. Obviously, things have been tumultuous is probably the right word for it. With the conflict slash war in the Middle East taking place, and whether or not the U.S. is going to be heavily involved, lightly involved, boots on the ground, no boots on the ground, all of that remains to be seen. Things are still far from settled over there, and there's of course at any point anything that could happen to sort of take things in a different direction, is what I would say. So, with that in mind, I'm not saying don't trade. I'm not saying, um, you know, follow the charts first and foremost, as always. That's what we constantly push at Xtrades. But my point being, just be a little bit careful with getting too heavy on long swings or anything like that, because again, everything could be going just fine. Technically, it could be working out the way it should work out, and then all of a sudden, some tweet or news story or whatever the case might be could just totally upend the momentum and direction of everything that is working out in your favor at that point, right? So just be careful. We are in a what I would call a hot news cycle. And when the news cycle is hot, it's kind of like when VIX is hot. You just have to be a little bit cautious and adjust your position sizing some, and just wait for things to settle or become resolved with some greater degree of certainty before we go getting too heavy into any kind of an options trade. Stocks, obviously, a little bit different scenario. You've got time to recover. It's easier to dollar cost average, all that sort of stuff. If and when some kind of catalyst throws off what is an otherwise um, winning trade plan. So, with that being said, what are we seeing here on ES? Things have remained bullish, even with the gap down after the bombing of the sites over in Iran. We gapped down, but we pushed hard enough here on this 15-minute candle to close back above and maintain the bullish momentum here on ES. Nice little back test after we broke above. See, we've pushed higher from there. We've cleared over these SMAs, 200s crossing over the 333 are all technically bullish signs. So, I think overall we've got some pretty good bullish momentum working in our favor. Let's check a couple other of my favorite time frames, though. I also like to take that hourly. What's up, Corey? Good morning. Thanks for joining. Hopefully, we'll see some more folks trickle in here shortly. What is that this moment? What's up? That's no one. Just gonna go with Owen. Hey, how's it going, buddy? You're doing well. Yeah, hourly chart, we did push through the bearish sell pressure there and are pushing higher here. Good, strong momentum as seen by our trend ribbon there. 200, 333, a little bit mixed here on the hourly, but nothing that looks crazy to me. Let's also check the 4 hour. That's another one I like to look at. Yeah, I mean, overall, still pretty strongly and firmly bullish. As long as we're holding over 59.03 on the 4 hour, it looks strong. Nice bounce off the 200 SMA there on the 4 hour. We are trying to push above these recent highs, and looks like we're trying to flip them to support. So we could see things continue up here um, throughout the day today. The one thing I would say is it's a little bit overextended here on the 4 hour chart. I'd like to see a pullback and a retest of 60.68. See a test of that. That could be a good spot to buy the dips. So, if we're looking at ES, that would, pretty much not exactly as far as the numbers, but you see ES testing that support and you like the idea of buying the dip there. You can, of course, if you're not a futures trader, trade that with SPY or SPX, whatever suits your risk profile. Um, so anyway, overall, things looking strong, things looking bullish, but again, plenty of potential catalysts out there that could just pop up at a moment's notice and really kind of shift the direction of things pretty quickly. So with that being said, let's get into some of the trade plans that we've had going on since our last couple of live streams. Intel is one. When do we do this? We did this last two back in May. Did this last Tuesday. I should have marked it. That would be here. This one went into effect here. Overall, Intel has continued to push to the upside. Let's get to a smaller time frame so we can kind of see these confirmed breaks and all that a little bit better. So this trade plan went into effect here, gave us the pretty good confirmed break above. For some reason, didn't make the full stretch up to PT1 on that first attempt, but overall maintained bullish momentum. And then we got, what I would say is within a reasonable range of PT1 there. And then last week we got PT1 plus. The upsides continue to play out. This continues to look pretty bullish to me. Interesting, just barely below. Look at that. I am making some slight adjustments to NTS. Put together what I think is a really interesting approach to detecting volatility in the movement. So we're not getting these flags flipping over unexpectedly. And again, the great thing about this system is once the flag is established, it's no longer a lagging indicator. It is essentially giving you the levels to watch in real time. And then you just, when you get into those resistance areas, expect to play for downside. When you get into support areas, expect to play for upside. But this kind of a weak break below, I would like, to catch that. I think this should still look bullish. So might need to look at the settings and make a tiny, I say tiny, like minuscule, almost not noticeable adjustment anywhere else, but would be enough to catch that. Although that is a bit of a close below the 330. It's okay. Let me make it. On spray. Okay, that is in place now. So, like I said, Intel trade plan playing out nicely. For those of you who are joining for the first time, so Owen and Corey, maybe you, Plum, I know you have been a long time listener and loyal participant in these morning live streams. If you guys have any questions, any ticker requests, I see Ryan Brown over in the YouTube chat. What's up, Ryan Mernon? QQQ, Flow is still cheap. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at those. Flo, is that the like flowers foods thing or whatever that you dropped on us a while ago that played out really nicely? But yeah, we can take a look at those. I think that we even have an existing trade plan for one of the morning live streams. What's up, Dr. David? Good morning to you as well over in the YouTube stream. So that's the Intel trade plan. Let's get to the next one. That's not the on Carvana. This one has been playing out to the upside EEA beautifully. We did this one last Tuesday, right here. This one, that's where this one went into effect. We got the break above, perfect back test, right, a little dip below, but that wick got bought up and kept pushing higher. So that's a really nice back test candle. That played out for PT1 throughout the day, PT2, and now PT3 plus. So if you guys followed this Carvana trade plan, congrats. This one was an absolute banger, and we had it nailed before it even made the move. We were, in fact, putting this together an entire day early, and then Wednesday gave us the move we were looking for, and it's been nothing but off to the races to the upside since then. All right, let's go to, do we have any up there? Tesla, that's right, we did do Tesla as well. Tesla finally gave a break to the upside there yesterday, uh, probably due to the robo-taxi kind of test pilot. So this one did break to the upside. Yo, what's up, Chris? Good morning, brother. How are you? Break above, quick back test here on the 5 minute, played all the way up to PT2. I was calling this one out in the chats yesterday. I said, this looks like it's going to hit PT2 today. With the momentum it had, it sure enough did. It's held bullish so far, and it's continuing to hold bullish here this morning with the 200 SMA trying to come up, get some support there just below. I would say be careful. I would certainly keep my stops if you are kind of following the rules for executing these trade plans and moving your stops up as the price action continues in your favor. I would certainly have my stops at PT1 at this point going into today. If we lose that, that would also constitute a loss of the 200 here on the 5 minute. Let's take a quick. Yeah. Again, we're getting close to potentially losing, the bullish buying pressure as well if we lose PT1. So yeah, we were just talking about that. I was, kind of telling folks, listen, the market overall still looks bullish. Technically, it's a buy the dip market, in my opinion. But be careful about buying every and any dip, and also be careful about getting too heavy in any swing trades because again, there's lots of potential catalysts that could pop off at any point in time. Another thing to keep in mind is, and how do I say this the right way? Um, One thing that I think has totally been forgotten about because there is, essentially so much insanity coming out of the White House that it's flooding the zone, as some might call it, and so I think one thing that people have really one thing that I think people have completely forgotten about is, we still have tariff issues potentially coming. I know it seems like, oh yeah, I forgot about those, and I think a lot of people have. Um, but the moratorium, the 90-day pause or whatever, until we have another 90-day pause or 2 weeks to make a decision or whatever, is essentially the total lack of plan and clarity is happening in DC right now. Um, the way things are currently situated, and that's really all we have to work off of until we get some kind of new, about face on any and every subject possible, is that 90-day moratorium expires. I think it's July 7th or 9th or something like that. I think 90 days is coming up, right? So not only do we have potential war and conflict in the Middle East, tariffs are about to rear their ugly head again and become the forefront of discussions around the market. So just keep all of that in mind. Again, I know there is, to Chris's point, market news is crazy lately. It's gonna probably continue to be crazy until um, we see some more. Um, we see some of these things play out further. That's probably the best way I can say it. So anyway, Tesla played out beautifully to the upside. Two targets hit. Let's get to QQQ. Ryan was just talking about this, and I swear we did QQQ on a recent live stream, or maybe I did it as a member selected, or no, I think I did it as a top ticker. Check those real quick. Oh, boom. First try. So let's see. QQQ, if we're still following that same trade plan, gave us the break after hours yesterday. So this one's really not been actionable so far this week, in my opinion. There's another. I'll check that too. 20 false break. So, QQQ again has ultimately been pushing higher here since the market closed yesterday, flipping PT1 from resistance to support. So that's a good look. It could continue higher. But let's circle back to this on Ryan's request, and we'll take a look and set up a new trade plan for how we can forward. All right, so getting back to our other trade plans here, IBIT, this one played out to the downside. Man, I have a market day that so I'm not doing it while we were in the middle of a stream. My apologies, folks. This one went back right here. It's like I said, continued to play out to the downside. Nice, quick attempt to break over the 333 there, but ultimately once that started breaking down, then you got your break below, back test PT1 and on down to PT3, and that's where it pretty much bounced from. It dipped a little bit below there. Now rejecting that put, stop loss average down on that after hours pump that we saw. So IBIT in an interesting spot. Does look like a bit of a bull flag here. So I think if we do get a break back above 60.26, a nice confirmed break, IBIT could continue to recover nicely. So keep an eye on it and those levels. And let's see, IoT, the Internet of Things. This one did give us a tap pretty close. What was the low of that candle? 37.24. Pretty close to the reasonable range there, but kind of a wild 15-minute candle for it to dip down that hard in the middle of a trading day, get bought back up that quickly. Does look like it's trying to reclaim the 333 here pre-market. Could potentially, if it holds 39.28, I could see this trying to rally and bounce here. If 39.28 holds into market open. So keep an eye on that. For IoT, did we get to a third trade plan? No, that's an old one. All right, so let's get to some new trade plans. Let's work on these requests and questions from folks that posting in both YouTube and the Discord. So I think Ryan, was in here bright and early. He mentioned flow. So his flow was that like Flowers Foods or something like that. Yeah, God, that's my memories. It's terrible, but when it comes to certain things, it's like, how do I remember these things? I looked at it once and never looked at it again. Flowers Foods. Um, yeah, that is pretty inexpensive and pretty close to our previous trade plan on it. Ryan dropped this one, I don't know, forever ago. Forever and a day ago, actually. Let's see. Man, that thing really ripped for a while there, Ryan. All the way up to 26 from our entry at 15 and some change. That's fantastic, man. Did you ride that whole move, or did you uh, take profits along the way? But yeah, this is coming back into a really good area of interest, in my opinion. But let's take a look at QQQ. I think that's probably a little bit random ass ticker. Yeah, Ryan's but it was it's kind of reminded me of a Chris pick, right? Like, oh man, I would have never thought to look at that one. And then we find some banger trade plan. So that's why I love to do these. I don't presume to have my eyes on all of the best setups in the world. But if you guys see a setup or a ticker you like, we can certainly come up with a trade plan. That's where I could bring the most value, and that's where we start banking, making some money. All right, so let's work on this new Q. And let me get in. All right, QQQ. That QQQ nearing all-time highs. So that's definitely interesting. Also, would be kind of a non-coincidental area for us to take a big drop from. It's essentially, for the most part, if QQQ is at all-time highs, that means probably most tech names are near all-time highs, and that means it's pretty much impossible for anybody to be holding a bag unless, I don't know, you've done just something totally insane. Um, so it becomes a lot easier for people to offload in mass and across the board as we approach all-time highs. So just be careful of that. as we look at some of these some of these setups here, but definitely looking like the start of a bit of a bull flag here. Really liking how NTS is looking on this on the hourly right now. It's bounced there off the 3 yesterday on the hourly after a little bit of a liquidity sweep below. So, how do we want to skin this cat? Is the question. I don't think I know. And this is a little bit of again, we're going to have to rely on our Fibonacci extensions to determine our price targets for this. But essentially, with where we are currently sitting, I think if you're not already in, I'd be looking for a confirmed break of current all-time highs around 541.14. That then, we don't have anything else to use, right? No historical price data or anything. Fib extensions, that gives us 1, 2, 3 price targets to the upside, assuming I did my extensions correctly. And I would say, generally speaking, it ended up being pretty accurate. And then, yeah, there's definitely there's a level here that we're trying to hold here pre-market here at 536.72. Big rejection there recently. I would want that to hold as support, right? And this is, again, let me kind of talk about this real quick. Actually, it's going to be a worthwhile use of our time, I think, even though it might delay us from getting to the next trade plan. One of the things or questions that I get a lot is, how do you pick your levels, or how do you come up with these trade plans? What are you looking for? That kind of stuff, right? And what I kind of immediately saw as I looked at a chart like this is, okay, we had a big rejection there. There's obviously more downside that becomes possible below this 536.72, right? So here we are pre-market. We're trying to break above and flip that to support. That would be a good thing for bulls, right? We have 541.14 overhead. That's all-time highs. That's going to be strong resistance. There is a small window of opportunity here where I see like the next potential major support where we've seen a lot of rejections and continuation to the downside here at 532.67. So if we look at this setup right here, we're about a 1-to-1, right? So let's not short. Right. So if we talked about like just if 536.72 holds going into the market open, let's buy the dip kind of thing, right? And it's barely over a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio, right? So okay, but not great. And again, it's kind of presumptive that based on the fact that we hold that support going into pre-market, which again looks like we were trying to do that. However, we look at this kind of a setup where we say, okay, well, maybe if we're a little bit more patient, we wait for a break of all-time highs, set our plan up based on that, and using this stop loss rate, down a little bit right there, stretch this up to there. But now all of a sudden we're getting a lot closer to like a 1.5-to-1 risk reward ratio. I think there's better confirmation. There's a bigger window of opportunity and a smaller risk zone in that space. And as you can see, if we lose the bottom of that risk zone, that stop loss, it's just going to open up a lot more downside potentially based on this most recent rejection of that level. So again, if we've gotten over 541.14, well, obviously we've reclaimed 536.72 as support. I would expect that to continue to act as support. If for some reason that support fails, I'm not interested in holding for upside when I know that essentially now my risk, my next area down, takes me to a 0.7 risk reward ratio, right? That's where we really have to be strategic and smart about how we're setting up these trade plans. And one of the things I look for often, remember to keep those risk rewards heavily skewed in your favor. Because if you do, technically speaking, if we're going by, just pure mathematics, you could be a sub 50% success rate on your trades and still be profitable, right? As long as you're booking $2 in profit for every win, for every $1 in loss that you're booking on your losses, just to kind of use a simple math example. So anyway, let's get to the finishing of this trade plan. I just thought that was worth mentioning. I thought it just kind of saw it set itself up, and I was like, that's a really great talk. So as we kind of just discussed, we look for these windows of opportunity. Certainly see a window of opportunity for continuation to the downside. Probably pretty close. Yeah, I think it could take us down all the way to 525.80 before we see a real meaningful support bounce. And so again, look how we set that risk reward up just real quick. And again, I get that we have additional price targets. Sorry, that's something else I forgot to mention. I get that we have additional price targets, like if we're looking at this, right? Yeah, we have additional price targets if we hit them. But if we're talking about sort of how I like to gauge the risk reward of a trade, there's no guarantees that we don't hit PT1 and reject hard and wind up getting stopped out, either in profits or at break even at that point. We take some profits and then the rest gets stopped out, is what I was trying to say there. Ultimately, this trade plan allows for a 3-to-1 risk reward ratio, right? But I really like to gauge the overall quality of the setup and how hard I want to load this position, on that initial break of our entry level based on just getting the PT1, right? So, same thing down here. If we take a look at this real quick, again, just looking at our areas of, again, this is based on charts, technicals, confluences, all that sort of stuff. Again, 1.6 to 1, that's a good risk reward ratio. I mean, I prefer to see again closer to 2 to 1, but it's not too shabby there. So below 525.80, I'd be looking for 522.24. And below 524, there's an interesting level here. I don't have marked yet on the hourly. Yeah, still, but there's a gap. There was a gap here. This level could be slightly higher. And in a buy the dip market, I'd say I'd want to be a little bit more aggressive, scaling out my puts and trying to get as close to catching the bottom as possible. Excuse me. So with that being said, 518.26 I think looks like a good P3 for the downside. So let's mark this up in trade plan pilot. So we're looking for a break over 541.14, targets at 546.92, getting into our fib extensions. And 536.72 stop, put entry at 532.67 on down to 525.80, 522.24, and 518.26. Shared stop loss at 536.72. Good. Excuse me. So let's clean this up. There we go. That looks pretty solid, doesn't it? All right, let's copy this link. Here goes your QQQ live stream plan for my homie Ryan and the YouTube side of things. And let's get it posted here. Good morning. Let me set up a trade plan for SMI. Yeah, I think, again, overall things looking pretty bullish. Any kind of news could drop at any time that, but overall, I'd say it looks pretty bullish. And of course, we'll have a very specific plan for trading SPY intraday before or in a few minutes on either side of market. And just stick to the plans again. Yesterday was a little bit of a weird one with that bombing of the U.S. base. That really kind of made things a little bit crazy there. But ultimately, after we rolled this over to the bullish side, did get a dip. That dip held really nicely. Got a couple of liquidity sweeps down there and essentially a break back above and back test of the put entry. Strong buy pressure there on NTS, so that could have been a good but risky. Okay, I'm going to try to buy this dip opportunity. Better confirmation once we broke over the 333, and from there it was just off to the races. We ran up pretty much to BT1, bull flag for a little bit and broke out and pushed higher, and we continued to kind of elevate where SPY currently sits. So that's a quick take on it for you. But again, you'll have the full plan posted in the chat this morning. Again, it's close to market open. All right, so let's get back to our live stream plan. I've got that posted. Chat. Let me grab here. Oops. Yes. Yeah. Although I don't want to mess up this trade. So, yeah. So let's take a look at this QQQ live stream plan. And I also wonder, this was probably, yes, that's probably why. Hang on, see one thing real quick. I may have given myself notes that I don't need to worry about because I didn't update this chart, or I didn't refresh the chart really. Uh, yeah, still got kind of. No, 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 no. Sorry, I'm getting into the. Did pull back and bounce off that actually. Does look pretty good. There wasn't any air movement. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting into the weeds on something that I need to do on my own time, on the time spending with you all. So let's get through. Or actually, sorry, let's set up trading hours. Let's get our alerts set. It's a week. And then let's get our template locked in so we can refer back to this day. Okay, so what are we looking for here on Q? We're looking for a break above 541.14. That should bring targets at 546.92, 551.46, and 556. My words out 12. With stop loss average down at 536.72. To the downside, we're looking for break below 532.67. Should give us targets at 525.80, 522.24, 518.26. Stop loss average down shared with the upside there at 536.72. You are most welcome, Ryan. Happy to help. Did you go over SPY? Sorry, just got up. I talked a little bit about ES, Dr. David. And again, if you are in the Xtrades Discord community, you will have a full and precise as I can make it trade plan for SPY every morning. So let's see. Chris with CMG. He loves his burritos. Let's take a look. Crazy thing. I need to figure out how to better set up that trade pilot so it doesn't. If I can, I'm not even sure if it's possible. I can get avoid causing all kinds of things, assuming it's active on the screen. All right, CMG. Let's take a look at levels. This one, so Chris, for what it's worth, and again, trade plans can sometimes be recycled or reused multiple times as long as we're kind of liking how the levels are playing out. We're still in that same range. I don't know how long ago it was that we did our last. Well, I was smart enough to mark this one. Wednesday, April 30th, right? Same levels we were looking at back then. If you were just looking at those same levels right now, nice break above there. Even if you waited for this back test, and this back test had a really, really nice confluence with that key support, two SMAs, NTS buying pressure, long signal. Pretty much the only thing that's a little concerning is that little bit of bearish momentum that showed up there for a moment. That didn't last long. You waited for that to clear out. You didn't have to wait long. And then we've just moved up through price targets from there. So that trade plan looks great, but we're pretty far removed from that right now and trying to flip this recent resistance rejection right off that same PT levels again. Learn your support and resistances, folks. Some people become too dependent on things that are kind of done for them. I do like Fibonacci levels, but I like them to find confluences with established support and resistance levels where those exist. Um, but if you rely on them just by themselves, I think they're not bad, but they lack the level of accuracy I personally look for in how I like to trade. So that being said, nice flip of that key level there. Looks like it's trying to flip to support as we go into pre-market this morning there at five. What is that? 538.83, I think. 83. 55 plus CMG explosion. All right, let's see. There is a weekly resistance there. Let's take a So I think, Chris, you may be dead on here. And I think what CMG really needs is a break over that 55 weekly resistance. Also, probably a bit of a psychological level with it being a round number. I think it does need a break over that to really open up room to the upside. I worry a little less about this rejection here due to the fact that that looks like just a straight up 333 SMA rejection. Chris, how often do I talk about the 333 SMA and how many amazing trades have we found either bounces off of it or rejections off of it? Uh, just depends on the time frame you're looking at. It's an indicator that anybody can put on their chart. It's totally free. It's something I discovered by mistake, and nobody ever talks about it. I don't see anybody else using it but me. I still think it's probably, one of the holy grails of moving averages is the 333 SMA. So anyway, that looks more like a 333 SMA rejection than anything else to me. That is no longer a factor. We're currently at, if we break back above 5501, 333 is below, acting as support with some confluence down there at 5130. So, it looks like above 55, we open up room to 56, 54. I'm looking at this kind of break above, back test of support right there. And you got to have these levels in place to know where to look, find those moves that kind of help make things a little bit more predictable. I think over that. 57.84 is up next. I think we'll probably move through that 57.09 level. And over that, yeah, there is a pretty strong amount of buyers and there's a big number of buyers and sellers kind of changing things up around 58.77. So I think that would be a good third price target place. Now the question becomes, where's our stop loss? I think our stop loss is pretty clearly, and we just talked about this, right? If we get back below this, start to look at potential rejection issues and further continuation to the downside. That totally skews the risk reward of the trade plan as we see it. There is a solid level there. Again, that previous resistance I would expect to continue to act as support, especially over 55. It doesn't, we're just wrong, right? That happens sometimes. Nobody's 100%. So that plan would be invalidated below 53.83, in my opinion. Downside. Yeah, I think downside's going to look like this. Yeah, we're just using existing support and resistance levels that we've already mapped out. And we're just finding the right one for our plans based on how the price action is behaving around those, what our indicators are showing us. So I like that. What is that? 5075 is a PT1. Yeah, I think we use this former stop loss average down here at 50.54 as a second price target for the downside. Seems like an insignificant to the downside there, especially when we're in profits and we're chasing the stops, so we're not letting green trades go red. We could definitely bounce at 49.92, so if we do, I called it, but I think we should try to plan for 49.30 in the real test. Could be 48.97 as well, but again, if I'm kind of debating between two levels and there's not a big difference between the two, I'm going to play more conservative and recommend scaling out early and often. Say all the time, nobody's ever blown up an account selling for profits. Small profits and big losses, that will definitely blow an account. But again, already talked about risk reward ratios. You've got to keep those in your favor, and just because you plan them in your favor is one thing, you need to also execute them in your favor as well. So let's dig in here. 5, 1. Started 56, 54, 57, 84, 58, 77, 53, 83. Sorry, the price down a little bit on the axis there. 292, 51, 75, 50, 30 shared stop loss. 83, so another shared stop scenario. Okay, all looks good. Levels. Chart. Y offset just a little bit. Something I'm trying to make more built into the script versus having to constantly adjust this, but that's something I will work on my own time. Looks good. Okay, let's go. We've got a chart, we've got a plan. Here. Pilot. Let's set our alerts. We don't popping off all hours of the day. It's good. Spam the chat too much with those bot alerts. July 1st is next Tuesday, 1600 day, close of business. Set that. That's good to go. So let's go back to our extended trading hours. Let's talk through this plan one last time. So what are we looking for here on Chipotle? We're looking for a break over 55.01. That should give us targets at 56.54, 57.84, 877 with stop loss average down at 53.3. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 52.92 to play for targets at 50.75, 50.54, 49.30 with a stop loss average down at 53.83. Those are your upside and downside plans for Chipotle. A quick reminder, folks, as we talk about the 333 and this trade plan pilot and all that kind of stuff, I have a lot of good indicators that are available that I offer free of charge as long as you're a paying Xtrades member, like this trade plan. Yours would be called trade plan. Discord link field. But the trade plan navigator and ultimate moving averages, this indicator right here, which you can map pretty much any moving average under the sun that you want, including that 333 SMA. So if you ever want access to those, just reach out to Chris. He'll make sure that I've got all the info I need and will let me know and we'll get you set up. And then, of course, obviously, Neptune is also available for purchase. I just did a massive update on this one, I think, to help find even better setups. I'm going to probably make a couple of more small tweaks to the variables, but overall, the way things are calculating and processing and detecting volatility now, I'm really happy with, excited about. Again, talking about confluences and all these indicators and stuff like that. 33, 200 SMA, NTS buy pressure, all in the same spot that Chipotle bounced off of there. And this all becomes a part of what I call a two-factor trading system, right? We want to have things that we have done ourselves on the charts. Those are our support and resistance levels, finding the right support and resistance levels by studying the charts and putting our own time and brain power to work there. And then we couple that with a few indicators that take our bias out of the equation and can help calculate things and show us things that we wouldn't otherwise see. So find those things that you can use for those multi-factor type of confirmations and put them to use, whatever works for you. I say implement it, test things, see what that does to your success rate, and if you don't like your success rate, make tiny adjustments, unless it's just totally crushing you, in which case, big changes. All right. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I do need to go get to work on the daily SPY plan. We will be back Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. and I am going to do something to kind of close out the month of June this Sunday. I'm thinking probably from like 10:30 to 12 or 12:30. We'll spend a couple of hours just doing Q&A, talking about the markets, talking about trade plans and doing all that stuff. So, will be a weekend session, but, not asking anybody to get up too early in the morning or anything like that. So that should give our friends who might be out on the West Coast, keep them from having to wake up, insanely early, like did it at 8:30. They'd have to wake up at 5:30, 7:30, okay, it's going to be worth, having some crusty eyes, I guess, when you join that stream. So yeah, I'm going to set something up for Sunday. I will post it on the Xtrades app and the webinar calendar. I'll make sure that goes on our Discord calendar as well. For those of you who like to follow us on YouTube, keep an eye on that. I'll post it on YouTube as well, so you guys can see that and follow along. So that being said, I'll get that published and locked in and announced, but go ahead and start putting it on your calendars. So, as we always say here on the Xtrades live streams, plan your trades, trade your plans. Remember, we are looking for profits, not perfection. So keep those wins big, keep those losses small. Go out there, get some green. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves. I will see you back here Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care.